the president gets off the plane first and walks 3 or 4 paces ahead of his wife. But this has been changed around somewhat on this trip. People have noticed that the president has been allowing the First Lady to get off the plane first and walking 3 or 4 steps behind her. It's one thing about Mrs. Kennedy. There's no trouble at all spotting her with that bright pink dress. She stands out like a beacon light in this crowd. The limousine now is beginning to move, and the President and Mrs. Kennedy riding in the back seat. They are not using the bubble, so it'll be an open limousine parade, apparently through downtown Dallas. There goes the first car, Secret Servicemen walking alongside of it. It's our understanding that the motorcade will be moving slowly enough so that everyone along the route will have a good look at the...
In response to political staff, agents who usually surround the limousine were pulled away so people could see the president better. One reacted by throwing up his hands in disgust. 3 times he protested what would prove to be a fatal error. Kennedy was killed by the 3rd shot from a sniper rifle.
Oh, yeah, another huge bone of contention here with research. This has been going on for a couple decades now about the motorcade route, whether it was changed or not. Well, another thing, spoke to Jerry Bain, head of the White House detail, who did not make the Dallas trip. He confirmed to me the motorcade route was changed. Said it to me twice. He didn't know the reasons why, because he wasn't there. The House Select Committee asked him off the record in an executive session, why was the motorcade route changed? So they knew to ask him this. Something was amiss that they knew this. And then he said, well, he said to me, well, I know the motorcade route was changed, but why, I don't know. There was alternative routes. Sam Kennedy confirmed to me that there were alternate routes. So this big thing about whether they should have went down Maine, Houston, that these are security matters that conspiracy or no conspiracy, Oswald or no Oswald, they're blamed on JFK, and these things found out not to be true. And it really makes you think about, we'll be sitting here right now in this conference or any of these books, if these men would have did their job. Final thing I want to point out here, this clip is the reason why this is slow-mo. This is ABC footage of leaving left field. That's Henry Ribka there on JFK's side, about to do his job. So he was informed of these fraudulent desires. But Henry Roberts raises up, and he's in the follow-up car, and he's going like this to say, hey, no. Don't get on the back of the limousine, no. And Henry Ribka is basically going like, what? What's the deal, you know? Because Henry Roberts basically told him right there, stand up, like what's going on. And good old Henry Ribka was going back to left field and was checking on luggage when President Kennedy was shot. And Henry Ribka's incredulity here continues because you can see him. He does it a few times. Even in regular speed, you see, but I wanted you to see Henry Roberts raises out of his seat and goes like this. He was the commander of the follow car who later ordered the men not to move after the first shot's on. He recognized it as a shot. So,
Henry Roberts.
I'm sorry. He's sitting right next to the driver of the follow car. And I don't know if you can see him. It's hard to see his top of his head now. That's John Reddy. And another thing, to Clint Hill, all this crap about Clint Hill, he's crying about what he could have did. He was assigned to Jackie. It was John Reddy's responsibility to protect President Kennedy, not Clint Hill. He was assigned to Jackie. Clint Hill even did his job, although we can argue about that. But let's say he did his job. What about John Reddy? Where's his tears? Well, Sam Kennedy told me he doesn't go to any of the annual Secret Service reunions. He's disappeared off the face of the earth. Never saw him again after 2 weeks in the White House detail after that with LBJ. And that's it.
Excellent. To see this in a more quiet atmosphere.
Again, this is from last year, Henry Ribka. And new reports, the ARB, we have to thank the shift reports for the month of November. He rode in the San Antonio and Houston and Fort Worth follow-up cars. He was not the driver. He was a protective agent. The new Sturgis film shows him jumping out of the follow-up car, Carswell, first agent, not the driver. Uh-oh, here comes Emory Roberts to rise in his seat and to have him stop what he's doing. Now this is actually on the footage here. You can see his hand gestures back. I've slowed this down, obviously. You can find this in David Wolper's presentation. He raises his hand with his, telling him to jump back, and there's Henry there saying what gives. Paul Landis is making room for Henry on the follow-up car, and it gets better or worse depending which way you want to look at it. And the new Secret Service shift reports from the ARB and the archives, Henry Roberts made not one mistake. Like I said last year, I was wrong. He made 2 mistakes in 2 separate reports. He placed Ribka in the center rear seat. Then later on, he said, oh, I was mistaken. He remains at Love Field. So for some reason, he thought he did get on the follow-up car. And to make matters worse, Winston Lawson, in his final survey report, makes the same mistake. But strangely, Henry Ribka is not even mentioned at all in the preliminary report. So something's really, and again, he's still doing it there. In real time, sources for this over the counter is David Wolber's 4 Days in November. You can see this for yourself. I was not aware that that was actually relatively commonly available here.
More or less out of the picture, out of the loop. And it basically boils down to Henry Roberts was basically in control of the nerve center of this follow-up car. There's Henry Ribka, an agent who rode in the follow-up car, was a protective agent in San Antonio, Houston, and Fort Worth, November 21st and November 22nd. This is different angles of them leaving Love Field. This is John Reddy, Paul Landis, and here they are leaving Love Field. Henry Ribka, thinking he's going to be doing what he just did at the last few stops. And this is when Henry Roberts rises in his seat in the follow-up car and with some hand gestures basically tells him to cease and desist from his actions. Paul Landis is even making room for him on the follow-up car. And this is when you'll see Henry Ribka. I think his picture says 1,000 words. Well, this is about as close as you can get here. Wow. And the most amazing thing of all this is the fact that there are not one report, not 2 reports, but 3 reports after the fact placing Ribka in the follow-up car when he wasn't there. Again, either they assume he did hop on the car or it's cover-up. Take your pick. There's Paul Landis, make room for him.
And the third gesture.
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah. And again, when you see this clip normally, it's normally, real time, it goes by quick. There's Henry Roberts right there in case you want a little closer look at him. One of the shift leaders of the White House detail. And this is a little bit of a blow-up I did here. There's him rising in the seat again. And the camera angles do change. This is from ABC's WFA footage here. So the camera angle does shift like that. That's why I had to do this hand gestures. And again, you'll see Henry Ribka. Henry Ribka is since deceased. Try to locate his family. Unsuccessful to date.
From the moment he arrived in Dallas, the president's protection was suspect, according to Vince Palomara, a Secret Service expert.
There was last-minute changes invoked by the Secret Service involving President Kennedy's security. Specifically, agents were told not to ride on or near the rear of the limousine. Now, these orders were funneled from the Assistant Special Agent in charge of the White House detail, who was the planner of the Texas trip, Floyd Boring, to one of his assistants, a shift leader by the name of Henry Roberts, who was in charge of the follow-up car. You can see an agent, Henry Ribka, doing his normal duty, jogging besides the limousine, when in the follow-up car, you can see Henry Roberts stand up and wave him back, and you can see a very perplexed Agent Ribka waving his arms in the air several times in seeming disgust. There was another lap.
Way around, go by the Continental Airlines maintenance hangar, head out for downtown Dallas, where thousands should already be on the street right now, waiting for a view of the president and his wife.
Also waiting.
He's making room for the off part. They all look back at him. He's still doing it. They all look back at him.
Thousands should already be on the street right now, waiting for a view of the president.
Okay. There's Henry Roberts who's standing up. In fact, I have a little clip in the minute. Jim Kennedy's repeating it, a little 20-second clip or whatever. That's Henry Roberts standing up in the follow-up car. He's the commander of the follow-up car. He's ordering him back. That's Henry Ribka, the agent who's on the back of the car, right near the back of the car, and his reaction. Paul Landis is getting into the car and is going to leave a space there. After the assassination, there was not 2 but 3 reports. Now, some of this stuff, when I think is ancient history, some of this stuff has only come out. Forget my discovery in the early 90s. Some of these reports have only come out in the last, 10, 15 years. So you're thinking, what more could be talked about in this case? I was telling Tom Merle, I said, There's been more inroads in this case in the last 10, 15 years than all the other years combined, but one of the big things for me was some of the reports that came out from the Assassination Records Review Board's releases because of the Stone film, and one of them was, there used to be just one report bad in and of itself, that mistakenly places Henry Ripka in the center rear seat of his car when he was left behind left field. Turns out there's a total of 3 reports that, quote-unquote, mistakenly place him in the rear of the car, here, the follow-up car instead of that car. What does that mean? What that means is, Henry Roberts presumably thought that after he was recalled, he got onto the car and it made room for him, but actually, for whatever reason, he was angry or whatnot, or decided himself, he ended up just staying in left field and affected security there at the airport as the motorcade began. And the thing about Henry Ripka is he was a protective agent that worked the follow-up car in Fort Worth that morning. They went to San Antonio, Houston, and Fort Worth on the 21st and 22nd, morning of the 22nd, and this was, obviously after that.
Also waiting is a man with a mail order right.
In charge of the follow-up car. You can see an agent, Henry Ripka, doing his normal duty, jogging beside the limousine, when in the follow-up car, you can see Henry Roberts stand up and wave him back. You can see a very perplexed Agent Ripka waving his arms in the air several times in seeming disgust.
Number 3. In response to political staff, agents who usually surround the limousine were pulled away so people could see the president better. One reacted by throwing up his hands in disgust. 3 times he protested, what would prove to be a fatal error. Kennedy was killed by the 3rd shot from a sniper rifle, well after agents, if they had been nearby, could have pulled him out of harm's way.
Bottom line is that they lost the president, and the agents that were there and were responsible at the time have taken that very personally.
Kennedy's death shook the Secret Service.
That was a tragedy for everyone. But like in any tragedy, lessons were learned.
Another one of these videos from YouTube, and this is from somebody, there's no name on it, The Truth Will Out. And I run it again so that you all can deal with what the accusations are. Let's run this, and it's about 1:29. You can watch it on these monitors here and comment on it.
Watch the left side of your screen. The arrow points to Agent in Charge, Henry Roberts, as he stands in the Secret Service follow-up car and motions with his hand. What he is doing is calling away the president's 2 most important bodyguards, the bodyguards whose job was to protect the president's back by riding on the bumper of the limousine throughout the motorcade. Watch again as he stands and orders the agents running at the rear of the president's car away. Watch the confusion inside the follow-up car that results. Now watch the right side of your screen. The arrow points to one of 2 agents whose job was to hop aboard the bumper and act as human shields. He's obviously perplexed. Watch as he shrugs his shoulders 3 times in dismay, each shrug more dramatic than the last. As you watch this scene for the final time, ask yourself, is this the kind of conduct you would expect from an agency that routinely sends an advance team to a city a month or more prior to the president's arrival in order to make preparations?
Mr. Hill.
Yes. I'd be glad to comment on that. I was the agent on the left rear outside, running alongside the car. The agent on the right rear, working the car, the right rear at that time, is an agent named Don Lawton. Don Lawton's assignment that day was not to ride in the follow-up car. His assignment was to remain at Love Field and handle our return, secure the airport for us when we came back. We were going to fly on to Austin, Texas. And what he was doing was, when he came back off the car, he was saying, okay, you guys, I'm going to lunch. Have a good trip. I talked to him within the last month, and he reiterated to me the same thing again. That's exactly what he was doing. Just making a gesture to us in the follow-up car. See ya. I'm going to lunch. Have a good trip.
Very disappointed. C-SPAN chose to use a very poor copy of the Love Field footage. This thing about the identification of the agent, whether it was Henry Ribka or Don Lawton, the point is moot. The bottom line is the agent was recalled from the car, from the area of the car, by Emery Roberts. And this thing about supposedly the agent said, "Yep, I'm going to go have lunch. It's up to you guys now." No one finds that credible. So that's where I stand on that.
Number 3. In response to political staff, agents who usually surround the limousine were pulled away so people could see the president better. One reacted by throwing up his hands in disgust. 3 times he protested what would prove to be a fatal error.
Okay, that was an official Secret Service documentary shown on the Discovery Channel, originally broadcast in December 2009. It's been shown several times since, including, ironically, before and after the debut of the Kennedy Detail official Secret Service documentary. Several Secret Service agents helped in the production of that production called The Secrets of the Secret Service. Other than Kennedy's staff, they endorse my view, Vince Palamara's view of what that footage shows. Very ironic indeed. Cutting right to the heart of the matter. This is Henry Ribka's non-dated report. Agent Henry Ribka, who for several years I believed was the agent being recalled at Love Field. I was in error. It was an error on my part. In the big scheme of things, so what? Very, very minor. But some people, like Gerald Blaine, would have you believe this is such a big to-do. Read his report and you'll understand why. Okay, once upon arrival at Love Field, Dallas, Texas, aboard Air Force One, I proceeded to the follow-up car 679X and stationed myself at the right front fender of 679X follow-up car and the rear of 100X, which is JFK's car. There I stopped everyone from going in between the cars. Once the motorcade began to move, I moved along with it until the motorcade picked up speed. From this point, I returned to the immediate area of Air Force One. Okay, this is in volume 25, Henry Ribka's report. Okay, so you read that report, okay, and it sounds like it's Henry Ribka. It's undated too, no date. Okay. Now, here is Jerry Blaine's book, The Kennedy Detail, written because of my research. In the interest of time, I highly recommend that you read my review, CTKA, on their website called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, a review of the Kennedy Detail, a compelling but dangerous mix of fact, faction, and fiction. If printed off, this is 44 pages. It's a very lengthy and documented review of the Kennedy Detail. But specifically, I want to confront his trying to denigrate my work based on page 359, without naming me. He doesn't have the guts to name me. Another theory involving the Secret Service circulated around one of the black and white television news videos that was taken at the motorcade was departing Love Field. It showed the agents jogging alongside the presidential limousine and Emery Roberts standing up in the follow-up car, motioning to Don Lawton, the shift agent who had been assigned to stay at Love Field. Lawton raised his arms and in typical Don Lawton fashion said something along the lines of, "It's all yours now, guys. I've done my job. Now get out of here so I can have some lunch." There's no sign of the video. None of the experts could know what was said. None of them knew what had gone on with the advanced preparations. One self-described Secret Service expert, myself, Vince Palamara, used this 5-second video clip of no sign to jump to the assumption that Emery Roberts was telling the agent to back off, that there was no room for him on the follow-up car. There were countless blogs debating the video in which the expert erroneously named the agent in the video as driver agent Hank Ribka. Yet Ribka doesn't appear anywhere in the video clip. Despite the incorrect identification of the agent, the problem with the theory is that neither Ribka nor Lawton was scheduled to be in the motorcade. The second agent allegedly being called off as Clint Hill, I never said that, who was in the normal process of moving back to the follow-up car as the motorcade departed. The argument has no basis at all, yet people have been debating it back and forth on blogs and presenting the theory of conspiracy consciousness for years as if it were some legitimate cover-up or justifiable reason to place blame on the Secret Service. Okay? But again, based on Ribka's report, sure sounds like it's Ribka, right? And cutting to the chase, I'm admitting I'm in error. It was Don Lawton. It was not Henry Ribka. If you see Tom Dillard's photographs and there's some motion picture too. I think it's from the Cooper film. You can see Henry Ribka jogging along with the cars. Then he comes out of view, and Don Lawton comes into view. Now here's the thing. Yes, Don Lawton was interviewed for the Kennedy detail. Do I believe that horse shit? No. Okay, O.J. Simpson denies killing Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman. I guess that's good enough for me. I mean, come on, people. We're supposed to believe, based on that footage, that also fooled former JFK Secret Service agent Larry Newman, the Ribka family, millions of viewers on YouTube, that other infamous video, JFK Secret Service Standdown, and many authors and researchers. Okay? You see the footage. He raises his hand 3 times, which I took to be in disgust, but 3 times. Emory Roberts definitely raises his seat in the fob car, rises from his seat, and motions with his arm to go like this. And it's supposedly Lawton saying, "It's all yours now, guys. I've done my job. Now get out of here so I can have some lunch." The guys in the fob car are all looking back stoically at him, including the non-agents, Dave Powers and Kenny O'Donnell. No one's laughing or smiling back at him, and Landis is making room for him in the fob car, but as it turns out, Lawton doesn't budge. Okay? You just saw Ribka's report. Also in Volume 25, here's Don Lawton's report. His is dated November 30th, 1963, 7 days after the assassination, okay? My instructions were to remain at the airport to effect security for the president's departure. Okay? He says nothing at all about moving along with the limousine the way Ribka did. Ribka's is undated, but presumably was written on or very near November 22nd. This was written 7 days after the fact. It reminds me very much of a after-the-fact, cover-your-ass type of report. Also, there was no Bain approval. Special Agent in Charge Jerry Bain, no Bain approval. However, this one is approved. This one is on official Secret Service stationery to Chief James Riley from Lawton. Okay. This is virtually written on just a blank sheet of paper. No date, no Treasury Department stationery, and no Bain approval. But again, I'm not saying it's not Lawton. It's Lawton. Because it wasn't until very recently that we had a picture of Henry Hank Ribka. Here he is. Okay. Now, I figured with sunglasses, it could still be him. But alas, here is Don Lawton walking beside JFK's car in Tampa. He rode on the rear of the car in Tampa 4 days before Dallas. He also rode on the back of the car in Chicago in March of 1963 and on countless other trips. Okay, you look at it, you say, okay, visually, there's no doubt it's Lawton. Okay, even though you have that quandary of the official reports. Okay, which sure as hell sounds like you're talking about Ribka. And it's very understandable why myself and everybody else was quote-unquote fooled, okay? But that's where that stands there. The bottom line is, even though Don Lawton is identifying himself, and it's definitely Don Lawton, you can see why the error in the agent's identity was made. It's very understandable. In the biggest scheme of things, it doesn't change my feelings about the contents of the video, as basically, ironically, endorsed by the Secret Service official documentary, Secrets of the Secret Service. I do not believe this 2010 notion from Lawton, allegedly, that, hey, I'm going to go have lunch, you guys take it from here. I don't believe that for an instant. Again, use common sense, folks. I make the O.J. analogy. O.J. adamantly denies he killed Nicole and Ron Goldman. Oh, that's good enough for me. I mean, come on, extreme example or not. Let's look past the silly straw men. You know, it just never ceases to amaze me how people will focus on one error or alleged error and not look at the big picture, the big scheme of things. Okay? This Kennedy detail book was written because of my research. And what it boils down to is Jerry Blaine was scared because I uncovered a Secret Service cover-up having nothing to do with a conspiracy. You can have Oswald all alone in the window, no conspiracy, and my work holds up. Although I do believe there was a conspiracy, although I waffled one time before. Okay?
This same expert, me, who had been interviewed for many conspiracy theory books, relentlessly blamed the Secret Service for JFK's death by using their own statements against them. In many cases, he had called agents to record their conversations without their knowledge. Not true. Only in a few cases, they all had the knowledge and they're deceased. When asked whether President Kennedy had ever ordered the agents off the back of his car, the agents gave him the stand line the Chief Riley requested they give. Bullshit. Again, read my CTKA online review. It's free. And as the agents upheld their code, Raleigh's words from the day of President Kennedy's funeral forever resonated in their minds. The Secret Service expert turned around and used their words to stab them and their brothers in the back with baseless accusations. Hey, it is what it is. All those former agents, and Jerry blames just a buck private. We're talking his superiors all said that JFK was a nice man, never interfered with their actions at all, and did not order the agents off the back of the car, okay? I didn't really want to get into this because this is supposed to be about Ribka, Lawton, and the Standdown at Love Field. But peppered throughout the book, you can see him protest this too much, okay? But again, read my CTKA free review, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. You need to just type in CTKA Kennedy detail, or just put the Kennedy detail on Google. I think it's on the first page. Understandable, justifiable mistake. In the big scheme of things, not a big deal. Even the Secret Service endorses my point of view. Okay, this is JFK at Love Field of the Secret Service contingent. There is Don Lawton right by the pause button that's just about to disappear. That is Don Lawton. No one contests it. There he is. Okay, and going forward, I found even more footage of this gentleman. Not Don Lawton, but Henry Ribka. There he is by the pause button. That is Special Agent Hank Ribka. Exactly doing what he said he was doing in his report in volume 25. This is a little bit of a blow up. There he is. Hank Ribka. Vindication.
But Emory Roberts, why I hold him as a suspect was, again, I discovered this more like popularized it. 1991, I was watching WFAA ABC footage of the departure of Love Field, and I see an agent. Turns out it's Don Lawton. Turns out, in the interest of time, it was two agents, Henry Ribka and Don Lawton, who were recalled at Love Field. They're starting as motorcade moves out. You've probably seen the footage I showed of the men who killed Kennedy and that. Emory Roberts rises his seat in the passenger seat in the fog part. It goes like this. And Don Lawton 3 times goes like this. Like 3 times. It's the universal, you can speak Chinese, anything, and they're saying, what gives? And Henry Ribka is the other one. The other agents recall. You see him in the newsreel pictures before the video footage. And yeah, and Emory Roberts, he ordered them not to move on Elm Street. As in Sam Kenny. I read in Harry Livingstone's book, High Treason, and Emory Roberts ordered the men not to move. Is this true? And I was waiting for him. I was like, that's hogwash. Where did he get this? Absolutely right. Yeah, I was sitting right next to him, and he ordered the agents not to move. I said, why would he do that? He said, the speed of the car, I didn't want to run over the guy. Jack Brady took a forward step, and I didn't want to run over Clint Hill. D&M had protected Presidents George H.W. Bush, Obama, and George W. Bush, not in that order. And he told me, that's ridiculous. Your job is to protect the president. You're not thinking about your own safety. You're supposed to rush forward. Look at the video of March 30th, 1981. They're agile minds, fleet and foot. You're supposed to cover and evacuate. That's what it is. Cover and evacuate. You're not supposed to return fire, so to protect the president. Only a few precious seconds, which is the Secret Service, equivalent of hours. Emory Roberts, I'll close with this. In the interest of time, that's pretty much everything. Emory Roberts, if you're into, I don't like to even call it a theory, but the LBJ did it theory, Emory Roberts is your smoking gun. What happened to Emory Roberts? Emory Roberts became the appointment secretary for President Johnson. He's the first agent from 1865 to the present to ever be an active Secret Service agent while being a part of an administration. And his grandson, John Roberts, was in the administration low-level runners, so to speak, in George W. Bush's administration. There's a news article I explored this in my next book. I touched on it briefly in the first. And the press are wondering, George Reed is getting bombarded with questions. Why is this Secret Service agent performing these duties Dave Powers used to do? Dave Powers were in the Fallout Car, too. And they're wondering, why is he greeting Akito, the Japanese Prime Minister? Why is the Secret Service agent doing that? And there's pictures of Emory Roberts and LBJ glad hand, all smiles. And when LBJ left office, well, 2 months before, he thanked the Secret Service. And he said, oh, Emory Roberts can't be with us tonight. He greets me every morning and says goodbye to me every night. The same thing he said about Bobby Baker. So there you have it.
Was killed. The Secret Service agents normally walk directly beside the car on either side. We do not see any in this photograph, but usually 2 or 3 Secret Service agents will walk on either side of the car so that they are there to spot anyone who looks like a troublemaker.
Why didn't these agents do more to protect the man? And the more I looked into it, the more I realized there were a lot of anomalies, a lot of questions that needed to be answered on the subject.
No one has spent more time studying the Secret Service's actions that day than Vince Palmera.
This is a man named Vince Palmera. Do you know him?
I'm familiar with him. I don't know him.
He says that, I guess, we'll talk about this, that he sent you a 22-page letter.
I recall receiving a letter which...
And this man's name is Vince Palmera. He is a citizen who has taken it on his own to become an expert. He's from Pennsylvania, and I don't know him. I've never talked to him. I've just seen it on the web. And he is, I believe he's a graduate of Duquesne University. So let's watch this, and I'll get your reaction to it.
There never would have been a book if I didn't send a 22-page letter, okay, to Clint Hill that pissed him off so much that his very good friend Jerry Blaine came out with this book as a counter. It's very obvious it's a thinly veiled attempt to rewrite history and to blame President Kennedy without trying to blame him for his own assassination.
The fellow we talked about in the last interview, Vince Palmera, you've seen his letter? No, he's been critical of...
Well, I'll accept his
Are
endorsement.
you worried that he's being...
Well, maybe he has some secret agenda, I don't know.
From the moment he arrived in Dallas, the president's protection was suspect, according to Vince Palmera, a Secret Service expert.
There was last-minute changes invoked by the Secret Service involving President Kennedy's security. Specifically, agents were told not to ride on or near the rear of the limousine.
There's a lot of people that, rightly so in my opinion, believe that he is responsible indirectly for the assassination because, again, the Secret Service agents are trained. If he hits the gas and obeys an order of the agent in charge who was sitting next to him, history would have been different.